Hi, guys. Welcome to the Incredible Hulk podcast. And we are discussing the season 2 story, A Child in Need, which was directed by James D. Parriott and written by Frank Dandridge. I'm going to be speaking with, I did an interview with James Parriott earlier, and you'll be able to enjoy that at the end of this little discussion that we're going to be having here. So please stick around for that one. He was a joy to talk to, and he gives us fairly good insight into how he made this story. I'm joined here by my friend Sue. How are you, Sue?
I'm fine, thanks.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
This one, Sue, is a pretty tough one to talk about.
Oh my God, I know, right?
Because of the subject matter that's involved. I mean, they didn't shy away from real life issues. That's the wonderful thing about the Hulk that stood out for me, as I developed as an adult, because obviously when you're a child, you don't see these issues as much. You don't see the dramatic things that are going on. You're just really there for like the superhero side of it. But as you get older, you realize...
I never picked up on how much peril this kid was in when I saw it, back in the day. This poor kid is just trying to get an education, right? And he's being terrorized.
Yes.
Can I start talking about it a little bit?
Oh yeah.
Okay. The kid is David has got a job as a caretaker at a school doing some outdoor gardening, and he comes upon this little boy, and this little boy is covered with bruises.
Yes.
Just a
on
mess.
His arms and stuff, yeah, and he's trying to cover it up, but...
Yeah, and he's crying.
Yeah.
And David, so he's processing his pain alone, without any friends, without any... just kind of trying to hide it all.
Yeah. He seems, he doesn't seem to have any friends that he's hanging around with in it or anything.
He's trying to hide it from him.
He's trying to hide it, that's right.
Yeah, he's not even like, please help me, my friends. He's like, I'm going to do this by myself. Kind of been isolated.
Very isolated. Yeah.
And at first I thought it was his mom. I mean, I was willing to bet dollars to donuts that it was his mother who was hurting him, because of the way she was so cold towards David when he came over to confront.
That's right. Yeah, she but then we realize that she's a victim herself, and
Yep.
and the thing about being a victim of at the hand of these people that lash out and use aggression towards people, their spouses or their children, is that they lock people into a sense of fear, and they use that as control. So often, the sad state of affairs, and it's going on now, and it's rife everywhere. Nothing's changed in those 40 years. It's still happening. Domestic abuse.
Yeah.
All these secrets behind closed doors. Who knows what's going on?
Right.
And I think they tackled it incredibly well, but they still, didn't shy away from some of the ugly aspects of it.
Yeah, and his it turned out that it was his father, and David came over. David really became the mandatory reporter for this incident, and the nurse was like, I tried to help this other kid this one time, and it cost me my job. And so she was really protecting her job.
Yes.
Which, is the old trope, right?
Oh yeah.
It's sort of a trope. It isn't sort of a real excuse anymore, but it's kind of the old you know, little thing. And so she was she wasn't able to deal with it, and so she needed some big superhero help, right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, it's terribly sad what's going on, and it's a sadness all round in society that these things happen, and they really do. It's not a work of fiction by any means. So many people have been, have had this kind of behavior from an adult thrust upon them.
Yeah, the upbringing, right?
Yeah, the upbringing has been very harsh, and there's some wonderful performances in this suit. I mean, I think Sally Kirkland, who plays the mother, the desperate mother, even though she's kind of torn between the love of her husband, the blind love, you might say, which is very common as well, and hiding it, kind of protecting him from the authorities. She's obviously desperately concerned about her son as well, and deep down, and her own well-being. But she's torn between her love, this love for her husband, even though he's doing these terrible things, And this is a common problem.
Yeah, it is. So, this is one of the few episodes where once the Hulk has come out, once David went over there, he was chasing through the city streets and stuff, trying to make it to the house before, and it was parallel cut with like his father demanding a beer, and his father threatening him, and his father then eventually actually lashing out and hitting him.
Goes for him, yeah, and pins him up against the wall and stuff,
and so then the Hulk came, and David came, and you see him Hulk out, and then you see him eventually you see him go away, and he calms down, and so I thought that was really interesting. The reverse effect.
He takes Mark, the boy, with him.
Yeah.
And the emotion on Margaret Hollinger's face, Sally Kirkland's character, is so heartbreaking. It's like a child being abducted, under your nose, and she's screaming, "Don't hurt him!" Oh my God, my boy. It's just horrendous. Even though the Hulk's protecting him, but it's just that desperation of the mother. She can't comprehend what the hell's going on here. You've got this green giant just burst through the door, and a child's been taken away. Her husband's been bullying the boy beforehand. It's just a crazy situation she's in,
So, yeah, the kid's performance was absolutely spot on. Without a doubt, the kid was, showed the threat, showed his fear. I mean, that kid must have been an amazing actor, at that time.
The kid was played by a Dennis Dimpster, who's now a director.
Wow.
He directs mostly independent films, I think. So he's still in the business. He's still in the business, yeah.
It's awesome. And then his father, that guy he did a really scary job.
Oh yeah, a very convincing part. Yeah, he conveyed that menace very well.
And I thought that the layers of emotional impact on the family were really well shown. I mean, you saw the wife go through her own abuse, the abuse that she's suffering at the hands of her husband, and then you see her also going through her own fear, you know, you don't see the, you see her trying to reason her way out, but she did a really I mean, that was an amazing performance too.
She was incredible. Yeah, she really was.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is the dilemma she's in, you know, for the love of her husband still, and so on, and trying to keep this secret, because David will not relent, and he basically gives her an ultimatum and says, look, if you've got a chance to go to the authorities and tell them what's happening. If you don't, I will. You know, and that's such an emotional scene. You know, Sally carries that off brilliantly. She's just in pieces, you know, of just a desperate woman. It's very tough, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So,
sorry.
I don't know how to. I was emotionally impacted by this.
Very much.
I mean, I cried, and it was. I mean, I just, you know, at the end, even at the end, I just walked away feeling emotionally unsatisfied at the resolution, which I guess was maybe the point. It was. I mean, they did so many different. They did so much different stuff in presenting this. It was pretty hard to go, you know, to walk away from. It's got a really hard takeaway.
And what's interesting at the end, and again, is quite a common factor about abuse, is that the abuser was abused himself as a child. So it's father like son. It's inherent. It carries on, you know.
Yeah. But the fact that he wasn't actually held accountable for his actions.
Yeah.
I mean, he was.
I think he was
for his own.
I think they separated or something. I think he was
hospitalized, but he wasn't incarcerated.
No, I don't think.
So I mean,
yeah.
That was a weird decision, but I know that the writer meant well. But
yeah,
walk away going.
He should have really been put in jail for that, for what he did.
Yeah,
without doubt. You know.
I mean, you don't terrorize someone smaller and less able to defend than yourself, and not have to pay some sort of penalty for that. So
Absolutely.
That's just my humble opinion on that part of the thing.
And
God!
It was interesting in the gym scene. You know, when he's attacking David, and David says, "Run, get help," you know, to the boy. There's an amazingly tense scene where Sandy McPeak, who's playing the father, Jack Hollinger, beats up David. But when he hulks out, it's an interesting reversal that the Hulk is bigger than him. It's almost like a sense of like, this is what it feels like now. You know, I'm bigger than you. You know, you were the father who was towering over your little boy who's smaller than you, and you know, now I'm going to give you a taste of your own medicine. You know.
But he doesn't actually hit him at that point.
No, he just sort of pushes him back, or he bounces off him. You know.
He just pushes him away. He lets him, you know, rail and beat on him, like you do. But then he was like, you know, he didn't turn that and lash out. Like Hulk could have crushed him.
Oh yeah, but it was interesting because, in a sense, the Hulk was showing him the error of his way. It was interesting how they did. It was interestingly cut how they did that, because that speaks a lot of things to me. You know, he's getting his aggression out, the guy. But then again, you know, at the end of it, he knows he's getting nowhere. He's not going to win. So it's beating him down, but by its sheer, you know, energy, submission. He hasn't actually hurt him or anything.
Right.
And I thought that worked. Sometimes that works better. I thought it was more effective for that. He turned the tables on him and showed him for what he was. You know, his own action.
Right.
You know.
And so that reminded him of his father.
Yeah. Doing the same
So
thing. Yeah.
I guess I don't really feel like the hospitalization was a satisfying end. Was that he needed to be? I mean, no, not even the Hulk held him accountable. Anyway, that just. I'm sorry. I'm pretty. I love kids. I love babies, and I don't want to see them hurt ever. You know.
Absolutely.
That's just bull roar. You know, roar.
Yeah. It does make you. It makes you want to Hulk out with anger, doesn't it?
It makes me want to Hulk out. Oh my god.
Yeah, but in hindsight, though, in hindsight, Sue, I'm glad they tackled these things because you got to bear in mind it's essentially like it came, you know, the Hulk came from a comic book. You know, he was just a comic character, and then they made him much more real and human in the series, which was great. But it's interesting if you take the Hulk out of the equation. For the brief few minutes he's in each episode, it's amazing the stuff they tackled.
I know, right?
On a prime time television back then, you know, the issues, some of the stories they did were very adult, you know.
Yeah.
And
this one was very adult.
This one particular, very much. This one in particular, you know,
made us women want to Hulk out. Made the people, the kids, the men who love babies and young kids, like, make us want to Hulk out too.
Yeah.
And but actually, you know, punish the guy.
Yeah.
It was rich.
I liked the bit, and that one line from the boy, Mark, spoke volumes to me. You know, when he was tormented by the abuse he's having and he felt weak and he couldn't protect himself. When the Hulk took him away, abducted him, and then he changed back to Banner. So the boy actually witnesses the transformation. And so you change like that. And the boy says, I wish I could do what you do. Sometimes it would come in really handy, you know. And that really said it all about the boy, you know. He wished he could be stronger and, you know, protect himself and protect his mum, I guess, you know.
Right. Aww. So good.
But it isn't. I think, but it is a standout, even regardless of the subject matter. And I think it's if you take that aside, I think it's a standout episode. I think it's a really good episode to watch and rewatch. It stands out to me as one of the best.
I don't know, honestly, Frank, if I could ever rewatch this.
Really? Did it really? It really got you? Yeah.
It really gets to me.
Yeah.
But man, you know, you're right. The other ones that are sort of this kind of brilliant, I would rewatch them, but this one I don't know if I could.
It's heavy, I know. It's probably, I would think, probably and I can't remember. I mean, obviously, you know, I haven't seen all the episodes for a long, long time, and they deal with some emotional issues in other stories. But this one stands out because I think it affects people more because a child is involved, you know, and that always hits so much more. It hits us somewhere that, you know, that we're more affected by it, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Crying.
And a woman being abused as well, obviously. You know, those things in particular strike a big chord in people, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad we spoke about it. I know it was difficult for you. but I'm really glad you are here to talk about it with me. I wouldn't
Yeah.
really want to do this on my own.
Yeah, I mean, and it made me real. I mean, of course, some of the emotional takeaways. I'm really grateful for my parents who weren't abusive, and I'm really grateful for all the other parents who aren't abusive.
Thankfully, there are. Thankfully, it's not. You know, thankfully it's a relatively small pocket of the populace that do it, but even so, yeah.
Wow.
But to impact people's lives like that, because even if it was just even if it wasn't physical, it was just mental abuse, which it partly both is in this sense, because he's controlling, the husband's controlling the whole family with fear. That's the hold he has. That's the power. You take away that fear, they're nothing. They're cowards, which is what the Hulk shows in him. You know, he's beating on him, and this guy's bigger than him, and he's just beating him down, even though he's not doing anything. But he's wearing him down, and then you just see him crying like a baby at the end. The man, yeah, and reverting back to a child. You know, it really is strong. It's powerful. You know, it's powerful.
Yes, sir.
For a show that is essentially a comic book character, you wouldn't think they would deal with these kind of stories, but they did. They weren't scared to, and I think that's brilliant. And that's why this series is so special to me, because of that. You know, it was the drama and the human things that were going on that made it so special. You know.
Yeah.
That's why it stands out so much as a great series to me. You know.
Yep, I agree.
And the troubles they're experiencing. You know, they're a very human series. Human.
Yeah.
Problems. You know. On top of David's problems, so he can relate. I mean, he's got an affliction himself that he has to deal with. It's just,
and I love how Lou Ferrigno has. He does so much with his face and his hands and his chest and his arms and his legs and even his feet without saying anything.
That's the thing.
I mean, his whole body is used to express, and I mean, he just does so much with those with that and without a voice. And I mean, not that Lou Ferrigno's voice is that much different from Bill's voice, but the thing is that I guess he made a choice not to have it talk.
Yeah, I think that was obviously a executive decision. I think not to have him talking like Hulk speak, like the comics, and just have it now. But you're right, though, Sue. What he the fact that he was not a trained actor at that time, he does remarkably well conveying emotion.
I mean, he had such empathy for that family. You could see it in the Hulk's eyes.
Oh yeah.
After Bill's performance was done, Lou's performance was like, see, these guys are drawing it out of him too.
Absolutely.
Awesome stuff.
It was brilliant, and that's what I mean when they used the Hulk effectively. And which they did in this one, and they do in many, many others. It makes the episode all the more powerful for it, Yeah. Like you, I only watched it a day or so ago, this episode, obviously to prep for this and to interview James Parriott about it, and I hadn't seen it for a while, a good year or two, I guess, maybe longer than that. And I was amazed that still, after 40 odd years of when it came out, that story, how it still resonates so much, that we haven't really moved on that much as a society, and this crap's still going on,
Right.
And that's sad.
Well, we all need a superhero, I guess.
We all need a superhero. You're right.
I mean, there's got to be the green one who comes out of us too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you see, like you were saying earlier, it makes us all of us who want to defend the downtrodden, want to turn green and burst out of our clothes too.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we can't in reality, but we all wish we could. Yeah. And give the bullies a dose of their own medicine, But
yeah, that's right.
But again, the thing about us as humans, fear sometimes, is very incredibly powerful, and you can control the fact that people can control people with that.
Yep.
Is desperately sad and scary.
Yep.
But people can, but if you can break that fear and confront these people, then you've got them beat. They will back down because basically that's the only thing they've got over you. And once that's taken away, they're nothing.
Yep.
Like any other bully or coward, I'm
going to quote you on that.
But it's true. It's true.
Yep.
It takes balls to do that. I'm not saying that not everyone can, and that's desperately sad. They'd be a victim for life until something disastrous happens and one of them kills one another or gets out of it something in a horrible way. But, some people never get over that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
And some can confront it and then get on with their own life and they're happy and make another family and be happy, But it's sickening in society that not just domestic abuse, but bullying of any kind is absolutely abhorrent to me. I hate it. And being bullied myself and knowing people that are being bullied makes me these days less tolerant of it, and I tend to speak up more for people who I see being bullied.
One of the Star Trek, Doctor Who, I don't know. She's been in lots of stuff. Grace Masterson. She's got a thing called the Superhero Coalition, which is an anti-bullying thing where you can look it up.
Oh, that's good. Superhero Coalition, it's called.
Yeah.
Against bullying. That's good.
Yeah.
That's Chase Masterson, the actress. Yeah, that's obviously behind that. Yeah, or advocates it rather. Yeah. Well, that's good to know.
But I don't know any. I don't know anybody tougher than the Hulk.
Yeah.
So I mean, as long as we know that that there is somebody tougher than all of this. I mean, people will have hope, I suppose.
Yeah, if we knew that there was someone out there that would be looking out for us in these situations and could get us out of the situation.
Yeah,
it would give so much hope to people, but unfortunately, not everyone has that. They can't see the way. They can't see the light at the tunnel to get out. And that's desperately, desperately sad.
Yeah.
Well, all I can say is, Sue, I'm just very much glad that you were with me to talk about this.
Me too. Yes. Thanks for challenging me to go and watch this episode.
Yeah. Don't worry, Sue. You don't ever have to watch it again. You're okay now. The nightmare's over for you. You only have to look at it once, so it's okay. You never have to look at it anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's masterfully. I think it's brilliantly acted. The material is, as we say, is harrowing, but the acting is absolutely brilliant in it.
Yep.
Hats off to all of them. Hats off to David. To Bill. Hats off to Lou. Hats off to the Hollinger family, the Sandy McPeak, Sally Kirkland, and the young Dennis Dempster. All of them were brilliant.
Yes.
And that's what made it so special and believable, you know.
Yeah.
And well done to James Parriott as well. I thought there was excellent directing in this as well. Very well handled, you know. Which is a very sensitive subject to tackle, and I think they did it really well. You know, without going.
And the fact that the David walks off into a bright, sunshiny day, and unlike the murky, cloudy days that he always walks off into.
Yeah.
You know, he look. It's showing hope.
Yes, that's right. I mean,
good decision on the director's part. He starts in the sunshiny day and he ends in a sunshiny day.
Yeah.
I mean, he bookended it really well, and then he dug in, and it was awful. And
then we got this horrible. We got the sunshine at the beginning, then this terrible darkness in the middle, and then the sunshine at the end. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You know, things are kind of being worked out with the family a bit more, you know, and stuff. So they're moving on in some way, and there's a bit more stability, which is good, you know.
Yep.
But thanks so much, Sue, for joining me. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
It's been really nice to chat about this particular episode, because it is one that sticks in my mind purely because it's had such a powerful impact on me, you know.
Yeah.
And many other people, I'm sure. So yeah, thank you.
Please let me come back and do another one of these podcasts, because I really enjoy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely will.
The Incredible Hulk. He really is incredible.
He's absolutely brilliant. One of the best, just in my opinion, it was the best superhero made-for-TV series, I think. It just has such a special place in my heart, you know. And thank you so much again. And thanks, guys, so much for listening. I hope you did like this, even though it's very tough what we were talking about. But that's what drama is. It's, you know, it has to tackle things. And even in a show like this, they do, you know. And I think sometimes that's a great thing, because it just shows the reality of things, and they're addressing it and making people aware of what's going on. I think that's important to bring those issues forward so people are aware of them and know how to get help if they're in a similar situation. So I think they did a great job on it. So thanks, guys, for listening, and we'll see you soon on another Incredible Hulk podcast. Until then, take care and goodbye. I'm pleased to welcome James D. Parriott. How are you, Jim?
I'm fine, Frank. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. Thanks so much for being here.
You betcha.
This story, Jim, A Child in Need, really stuck with me, and I think it stuck with a lot of fans because of the subject matter in it. It was a very heavy story in many ways, very emotional, and it's dealing with, you know, child abuse and wife beating, things that are going on behind closed doors and so on, which is, of course, a problem that's unfortunately hasn't changed much over the 40-odd years that this episode came out.
Right.
I'm just curious, when you were offered this to direct this, did you have to have many meetings about how to approach this subject, because it's quite a sensitive subject, you know, to tackle?
Yes, well, we did. I remember we did talk to obviously to psychologists. I can't remember who they were, but we did do some consulting about that, and we researched it. I also, produced the show. I mean, I developed that show with Frank, the writer, and he came in, and back in that era, we didn't have large staffs the way we do now in American television. It was Ken Johnson and I'm not sure if we had a story editor that first season or that season or not, but we had very small staff. And so writers would come in and pitch us ideas. Frank came in and pitched this story about wife and child beating. And the story wasn't fleshed out quite yet, but Kenny and I always wanted to stretch the show. We always felt that the show could do more serious subjects. And I would say that one was one of the first that we tackled that was a really serious subject. After I left the show subsequently, they did a lot of fine shows that had really tough and relevant subject matter. Like PTSD, the Nick Correa's show that he wrote, and I can't think of the other ones because I was off the show at that time because I'd moved
there
on.
was one about alcoholism and things like that.
Alcoholism, yes,
yeah.
Alcoholism. We and that was sort of a trial balloon, and as we were developing it, I think that I am remembering correctly that in Frank's original pitch, we didn't have the twist at the end that the character that Sandy McPeak played, when the Hulk starts beating on him, it turns out that he was a battered child as well. And that was one of the things that we learned as we were researching it, was that child battery and wife battery, it's passed down from generation to generation. And that often the people who are doing the beating were battered themselves. So that was significant. And I think that came in later. I made a pass through the script before I directed a writing pass. And that's the way it worked then. The Kenny and I would make, we'd sort of do every other show. We would be point on every other show. And we'd always make a pass, sometimes significant, through each script that's brought in. And then Kenny, being executive producer, would always be the final say on the show. If he wanted to diddle with the script, he always had the option of doing that. But that's the way we worked. And we developed that show over a period of probably, 3 months. And then I got to shoot it. And it was my first directing job. That show was my very first. And so I remember the directing part of it very vividly. But it was a lot of fun, and we knew we were doing good stuff when we were doing it.
Now, Sally Kirkland, who played the victim of Sandy McPeak's character, his wife in it,
yes,
gave an amazing performance in that.
Yeah,
Sandy, this desperate woman, and covering up, as is a popular problem that they.
Oh, Sally Kirkland,
the fact that this is going on.
Yeah, Sally was terrific. Well, we just it was a great cast. Everybody was just sensational. I was very, very lucky to work with such great actors. They were terrific.
I'm surprised she didn't get an Emmy for that, or an Emmy nomination for that, to be honest.
Yeah, she was awfully good in that, and her awards didn't start coming, I don't think, until later. I mean, she got that Oscar nomination that one year, but she was sort of a hot up and coming actress at that time. But yeah, I'm surprised that But the Hulk was considered a déclassé show at that point, and we were a cartoon show. I mean, not cartoon, but comic book. And which was kind of looked down on in that era, and so we weren't considered serious, I think. But we were trying to do serious work. Obviously, John McPherson, our director of photography, was doing really, really amazing work at the time, and we started to get recognized for that. Kenny's direction on the pilots and stuff was really superb.
Oh, it was.
And so I think our level of filmmaking was quite high, but that subject matter, which is doing so well at the box office now and is so revered and is all over the big and small screens, back then wasn't considered highbrow entertainment. So Emmy nominations we never believed that we would stand a chance at getting an Emmy.
But Parriott Hartley got an Emmy for her role in Married.
Oh, did she? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wrong.
There was one exception to the rule, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot that Parriott got it.
Yeah.
Well, doggone it. So I'm wrong.
So Sally deserved it as well. That's my.
Yeah, I thought
Sally
was. She was just fantastic. She was amazing.
She was. How did you find working with Dennis Dempster, the boy? The guy the character that played the boy, young lad.
He was great. He was. They were all good. You're always worried about working with young actors,
yeah.
But he was terrific. You can get burned, but I've only actually been burned one time in my life in making a pilot, where I had a young actor who just couldn't do it. Cute as can be, but just couldn't do it. But yeah, one of the things I remember working on, it was an Incredible Hulk episode, and I can't remember the episode. I remember she was a young Asian girl who was just a fantastic actress, and she was 12 years old. And I was on the set, and I asked her mom, because I had just had, Diana and I were having our first child, and we were, interested in schools. And I said, "Oh, where's she going to school next year?" And the mother turned to me and she said, "Stanford." It's like, oh, she's going to college, and she's 12 years old. And one of the things that you learn, like Jodie Foster and a lot of the precocious young actors who are really great, they're genius level IQs. And he was one of the kid in Child in Need. He was just really smart. And for some reason, the really, really smart kids can tap into emotions and know when not to overact, and they can be in the moment, which takes older actors years and years and years to learn how to be that way. But yeah, he was one of the special kid for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have did you find any that you were up against any kind of particular challenges while directing that story? Were there any technical problems, or did it go quite smoothly? Or
it actually went quite smoothly. And one of the things one of the problems on any set is dealing with. I feel very sad or sorry for directors who come in to direct a show that they're not involved in on a day-to-day basis, because they tend to be judged, and the stars tend to judge them rather harshly until they prove themselves. Director myself, and you sort of have to prove yourself to them. And I was lucky in that I didn't have to prove myself to Bill Bixby or Lou, and they just trusted me right off the bat and helped me. So there were no delays or arguments or anything. We all worked very smoothly together, and John McPherson was just terrific to me. I would say, "Gee, can we do this shot?" I remember one just crazy shot that I had that involved a dolly track that crossed the street and 4 feet off the ground. It was just a dopey shot. And he said, "Oh yeah, we can have that set up in 20 minutes. And he did. It was just this fantastic shot. And it was like, okay, great. But it was I had no problems at all. The only thing you have particularly back in those days, 8-day schedules, we had 7-day schedules. And that was tough, because you had to deal with Lou and Lou's makeup, which was, him getting green and getting ungreen, and keeping that makeup consistent was always an issue. Could be a time issue. And 7 days is not a lot of time to make a show. It just, an ambitious show, and that kind of stuff, you really have to move quickly. So as a young director, and as a first-time director, I wanted to prove that I could make the schedule and stay on time and not overwork the crew, and so that was a big consideration for me.
Yeah. Did you have was there a particular amount of time for rehearsal? Did you have any rehearsal prior to shooting?
Yeah, you always do that. We don't have any rehearsal prior to the actual shooting period, but we rehearse for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You don't have a lot of time on an episodic television to rehearse, but we rehearse for 20 or 30 minutes. Let the actors find themselves and find their role and find the blocking. And then go away into makeup, and John McPherson takes over the set and would light it, which would take him 10 to 20 minutes, and then we'd bring everybody back in and shoot. But yeah, It's you don't you get to rehearse pilots. Pilots they give you a little bit of rehearsal time on the front, and you can have maybe 2 or 3 days of rehearsal. But on an episode, you would have to start paying the actors from the point of time of rehearsal, and they don't want to pay the actors extra money. That's just the studio policy was just to bare bones. They didn't want to spend anything.
Did you find that the actors on A Child in Need, all of the main stars in it, did you find that you had to do many takes with scenes, or did they get it pretty much on the after 1 or 2 takes on the
Well, if you get it on take one, and it's really weird. I have to tell you, directing is a very strange thing in that a lot of times, and I mean, directors will laugh about this. You get it on take one, and then you say, well, let's just do another take, and the next take that you print that's printable is take 8 or 9, or 10. and it's like, and that's the time eater. I read that Clint Eastwood will just print take 1 and move on. And he's probably very right in doing that. I think that 80% of the time, take 1 is probably just as good as take 20. Sometimes you want to do extra takes just to get the actors to relax and to get into the moment, because they're still working on hitting their marks, and there's still other stuff going on in their heads. So as a director, it's very important to be able to recognize when you have the performance, and to print it and walk away, or whether there's something else to get from the performance, and whether you should keep going. And that's kind of what directing is, frankly. You ideally, in any situation, I learned this from a director named Steve Miner, if you cast well, you have to you direct less. Cast well and let the actors do their work is the best thing. The directors who always seem to get in trouble are the ones who want to direct too much and tell their actors too many things, and the actors get confused, and they don't rely on their own instincts. So you cast well and then let it happen. Let the magic happen.
Were there any particular scenes in the show, Jim, that you were particularly proud of or fond of? How you shot it and so on.
Oh,
anything
gosh.
stand out?
No, I remember Sandy, and the beating scene was terrific. And Sally, I remember her performance, but yeah, I think that the confrontation scenes were for me very effective, and but I can't remember specifically a scene standing out and is one over the other. No. That's too long ago. I'm sorry.
Because of the subject matter, because it's very intense. Did Sally at any point, or Sandy, or whoever was in the scenes, call you to one side, or your assistant and so on, and say, look, where am I at here? I need a bit of help with this. What should I be doing? This how should I be?
No. I remember that I was worried that I was going to get a lot of that, and the actors were so good that it was just letting them relax into the scene, what they had to bring, and you just give them enough takes. You let them relax. You let them know you're not going to rush them off the set. That's also one of the things. It's a very emotional scenes. What you want to do there is you just want to let them know that they're safe, and that they have time to work, that they're not rushed, that we're not going to do just take one and run off, because they need some time to work up to it. And you just keep everybody calm and everybody quiet and let them do their work. And you watch them very carefully and see when they're ready, and then give a quiet roll and then action and let them do their work. If you think you can get more, if they think they can give a little more, you may talk it over in between takes and go, you want to go again? And they go, yeah, I can do better, or I can, let me do this. And so you give them a few more takes. But yeah, you just deal with that very calmly and let them know that they're in a safe environment.
How did you find working, with Bill Bixby?
And Bix was great. I mean, Bix was, he was always needling me. He says, "Hey, you're getting good feedback from the dailies, huh? Aren't you?" He was great. He was very supportive, and
Yeah.
he knew the script was really good, and Bix was proud of the show, and wanted the show to move into more stretchy directions, and so he that's what he did. And he was very supportive. He's always terrifically supportive. Good guy.
Yeah. You went on. We're moving on now, Jim, if you may, from that story, Child in Need.
Yeah.
I know that you also, just briefly, I know you also worked as supervising producer. Could you let us know exactly what that entails?
Well, supervising producer, it's kind of weird in television. What they do is, as shows begin to develop staff, sort of coming out of the 60s into the 70s, so when I first started working in television, their shows didn't have staffs. Maybe comedies did, but dramas did not have you wouldn't have a staff of writers. As I think Hill Street was one of the very first shows that started actually accumulating writers in a staff, that they're better writers. We were just starting to do that, and when we were doing the Hulk, and the producer ranks, producer was a title that you got when you were brought on staff and started to have some real responsibility. But producer title now, and producer title even then, the producer was the line producer, and who dealt with physical production. Supervising producer was more of a writery title, and it meant that I was just below Ken Johnson. It was, Ken was executive and I was supervising producer. So it was a rank title. What I did as supervising producer with Kenny is we had worked together very closely on Bionic Woman for a couple of years, and we're very good friends, and trusted each other. He trusted me. And so we would sort of alternate shows. Doing television back then in that era was, now they sort of, writers are writers, but back then we become producers and become actual filmmakers, because we were supervising the editors. We were on the scoring stage, supervising composers. And I mean, a lot of times the first time that we would ever get to see music up against picture would be when we had a full orchestra on the scoring stage. And if we didn't like the music, Joe Harnell did the music, and Joe was great, but we would have to go, and I was just a 27-year-old kid, 20, whatever, and, would have to cross the room and go to Joe up on the podium and say, "Gee, could you lose the horns and bars, 4 through 18? I really don't think they fit, or can you, it was fun. It was an additional pressure. Now it's all done, with computers. The music is all done in someone's home in small studios. And it's very different. You get to preview all the music before you ever set stage on a dubbing stage, where you put it up, mix it all together. But yeah, back then you would go on that scoring stage that morning and be hearing everything for the first time, and it was like, whoa. But my point is that it was really labor intensive. Kenny and I literally ran. We were running day and day. It was so much fun, but we were running all over that lot, and hearing writers' pitches and supervisors and rewriting. And I'd have in the morning to do any rewriting before the editing and the meeting and all that kind of stuff started. But it was crazy, and it all. It was just too much work. So Kenny and I would alternate shows, and that's the way we worked it. So supervising producer was a title that was just under Kenny, and we operated. Kenny was always the boss, but I operated as his close assistant and alternating, point man on each show.
You went on to be involved in some big shows, big series,
yes,
as executive producer. So I'll ask you exactly what that entails as well. But some of the credits are Dark Skies, Grey's Anatomy, Ugly Betty, and Sons of Anarchy, which all these shows have been incredibly popular.
Yes.
Yeah. Could you tell us how you got them? You can choose any one you want, really, Jim. Whichever one you want to speak about. I'm just curious how those things came to you, and what an executive producer role is.
Well, it's sort of executive producer / showrunner. Showrunner is the new term that people use, although the credit is still executive producer. One of the wonderful things about working in Universal back when we were doing the Hulk, and that I was just talking about, is we got to do everything. I mean, we got to do everything. We were filmmakers. And it's less so today, but you learned we were responsible for budgets. If a show was over budget, and they always were, we had to figure out how to bring the show down. We had to look at the assistant director's shooting board and figure out, how that could be the most efficient. Often it required a rewrite to make it more efficient. A gasoline station might not work on a particular day, but if we change the gas station to a laundromat, there was I might be able to move it over on this day, this schedule, where there's a laundromat right next to our other location. Things like that. But you learned how to cut budgets and to be responsible for budgets. We learned how to score and do music and mix the show, dub it on a dubbing stage, on a mixing stage. We learned everything. And as the years have gone by, work has become more segmented, and there haven't been a lot of people who do everything, who can be responsible for everything. But that's what a showrunner kind of needs to be. A showrunner needs to be responsible for everything on a show. It's sort of like a director on a film.
Yeah.
A director is generally responsible for everything creative. A showrunner in a television show is responsible for everything creative. And because of my experience over the years, at one point I became sort of a teaching showrunner. It's sort of like I came on, for instance, Grey's Anatomy. Shonda Rhimes had no experience in television or running a show. And I came in on that show. She just had a pilot script. It wasn't a series, or wasn't even a pilot at that time. And I helped her develop it and develop the series as we shot it, and developed the voice. And I really worked on that show with her sort of as her co-showrunner. I mean, I was teaching her how to do it. By season 2, she was running the show herself. I mean, she's phenomenally talented. But I became known as that. So after I did that with Shonda for 2 years, which is all I was signed up to do, I did Ugly Betty and got that show going for Silvio. Kurt Sutter and Sons of Anarchy, that was just because Shonda had asked me back to take over Private Practice in the second season. And I was actually going to do that. And then I had a show of mine called Defying Gravity that suddenly got a pickup. And that was in first position, so I couldn't do Shonda's show. But I had some time that summer that was free. And so John Landgraf came to me and said, would you do Kurt's show? And so I did. And what I did for Kurt, now Kurt didn't need any show running help, but he hates the writer's room and hated working with other writers. And so I was that person who worked with the other writers, and then we would feed Kurt material to either rewrite or do whatever he wanted to do with it. And then he would take over the episode. So he was different. I didn't teach Kurt anything. Kurt's a fully formed talent. I mean, but Shonda, Silvio, Orta on Ugly Betty. I did it for the guys on Covert Affairs. I did a bunch of shows where I would come in and for a season or sometimes 2 seasons and sort of be the showrunner, responsible showrunner at the beginning, and then pass off to the creators of the show. Does that make sense?
Sorry, Jim. As an exec producer, would it involve you being on set a lot, or did you or wasn't that so much
I find that being an executive producer, being a showrunner, that's you only go to the set. Well, you go to the set for morale, just to show up and to talk to your actors and to have those relationships. But you really, or of course, if there's a big trouble thing, like for instance, when I just came back to Grey's on season 11, Shonda needed some help on season 11, and I came back for about, I don't know, I think I did 14 shows as an executive producer, as a showrunner, to kind of come in and calm it down. It was the year that Patrick Dempsey left, and she needed an experienced older person who the cast all knew and respected to come back in. So I did that. But you don't go down, and I had to do what was on the set a bunch then, but you don't do that regularly. A showrunner now, the best places that a showrunner can be now, and the most effective places creatively, are in the writer's room, breaking the story. You guys in the UK don't have many writer's rooms. We, in the United States, sort of, that's how we write shows.
Yes.
But either in the writer's room, in front of their computer, or in the cutting room. Those are the places that they can affect the story the most. And they can do everything else on their computer. They can supervise the score and how your composer is doing, because the composer will send you files with the music and the picture, and you can see how it's working. But but those are the three places that you're critical. Hanging around on the set, what you do for your writers is I usually take, and most people do this, on the writer whose credit is on the show, who's on your staff. That's the person who sits on the set and represents the writers, and stays through the show. Anyway, so that's the way we work it these days.
Yeah. And what are you working on currently, Jim?
Currently, I'm doing a show called Parriott for Amazon, and I encourage you to watch it. You have to be an Amazon Prime member to see it, but it's a wonderful show. I was just at an award ceremony last night for the Television Critics Association. Gave us a nomination for Best Comedy, which is sort of out of left field. We weren't expecting it. It's great. It's a funny show. It's a funny, serious show, but really wonderful. Written and directed by Steve Conrad. He's just this very unique talent, and love the guy. And I came onto that show just to support Steve. I saw the pilot and they said, "Would you be interested?" And I said, "Yeah, I love the show." And I met Steve and we hit it off. And I said, "Yeah, I'll come in and do whatever you need me to do." So I ran the room first season, and second season, Steve decided I'm going to write them all myself. So I was stuck with the show second season. He lives in Chicago. I went to Chicago a couple of times and helped him and his team work out some of the stories. But my involvement this year is much less than it was the first year. But it's a great show. I encourage people to watch it. It's quite wonderful.
I hope you guys are listening to this and check it out, because I've spoken to the man who's working on it. So
yeah, it's not The Parriott. Don't put The Parriott. It's called Parriott. And it's really quirky. And this year we're actually shooting it entirely in Paris.
Oh, lovely.
So it has some nice Euro
content. First time you've been over to France, Jim, have you been there before?
Oh, I've been there before. And this time I didn't even go to France. Since Steve is directing, when Steve's directing, you don't have to be on the set, and he's directing every episode. So it was one of those things. Do I want to go over on sort of a boondoggle and, eat some nice food and hang out on the set? And it was like, we can use the money better in production than we can just sending me over to, putting me up in a hotel and doing that stuff. So I didn't go this time. But yes, of course I've been to Paris.
Yes.
And I've worked in the UK. Spent the better part of 2000, 2001 in London.
What were you working on there?
I have a show that was called, originally it was called Emma Brody when we were shooting it, but it wound up being called The American Embassy. And at BBC, I think it was BBC 4. I can't remember who had it in England. But yeah, I did a show there. We lived in Marylebone.
Oh, lovely. Very nice.
Marathon House in Marylebone. And worked out at Ealing. We were in Ealing Studios.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's great. Well, Jim, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. And,
Well, thank you, Frank.
and thank you so much for your memories. This episode was a standout, I think, and I think that people remember a lot that enjoyed the series,
Yeah, I enjoyed doing it, certainly.
It's been, and it's nice talking to you about the other things you've worked on too. Obviously, we couldn't talk about everything, but because you've got a huge resume that I looked at, I thought I'd just try and pick out a few things for you, try and narrow it down. But it's been lovely speaking with you, Jim, and I hope you guys enjoyed this too.
Yeah, sure.
And we will be back again with another Incredible Hulk podcast very soon. So I hope you be back with us then, and take care. Thank you.